Yeah, no, that's fine. As if we've got it sorted, then we're good. So Sven is my head designer, so I invited him as well to join
Awesome.
on. He's the
Hey
fourth
guys.
member of our team, and he's the only other member besides myself in Canada and Toronto as well.
Well, yeah, you're you work with Casa Mescal, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I
I'm one
mean,
of the team.
yeah, he's well, I mean, he's one of the owners of Casa Mezcal.
Oh, owner. Nice. That place
Hmm.
is amazing.
That
It's not
explains
like that.
why I was like seeing you pouring shots in behind the bar. I'm like, damn, this guy has balls. Just like went behind the bar, took their bottle, and started pouring shots. And then I was like, okay, you work there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're used to me doing that, and most of the time it's because I'm smoothing things over. They call me when it's an emergency. I'm not really part of the operation anymore. I mostly go to help sometimes with like events on the day of, but my brothers, they're the ones that take care of the day to day.
Bro, can you tell your brothers to get on like some sort of a crypto payment service so that we can pay you guys frequently
I
and
got I have a meeting for next week with Pay.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm using too.
So actually wanted to talk to them about kind of hosting something special with Pay at Casa for the what what the event next year. What's it gonna be?
Well, there's
Uh
a consensus conference in May. I think that's a good one for you guys.
yeah, that one exactly. Doing something special. Maybe even like Solana based or something like that.
Oh, that's
I,
cool.
I'm not too into the crypto world, mind you. Um, Jerry and Leo know this. Like I try to understand as much as I can, but there are a few things that I have no idea about.
Same thing here. Unfortunately, I'd love to learn more, but we're primarily we're tech bros, so we're we learn as much as we can, but we're stuck on the mobile web design, all that other stuff for now. So
Yeah,
Yeah, to be
absolutely.
honest, I think like I think your project's great.
thank you.
One of the big flaws with Web3, not most people, but there are so many projects that are just shoving Web3 into Web2.
Yeah,
And I'm just like you know, I always say the number one rule of blockchain is that like not everything needs to be blockchain. And I mean, maybe someone could find a way to put it in with yours, but as I see it now, I don't see a need for it.
I have considered possibly in the future, but that would also come with us. Basically, one of the things is I didn't want to jump into that without knowing the space myself and understanding it. So I know just the basic stuff about blockchain and things like that. So as we continue on, I have thought about, and we actually talked about this before when we were all at the round table at Casa, the possibility of adding things like that as a later addition to it. People could get rewards, they could get things related. That's always a possibility. And one of the things I'm concerned about is
Folks, not
yeah.
don't mean to interrupt. Let's step back for a second and just explain who you guys are, what do you
Oh
do,
yeah,
and
for
what
sure.
are we talking about? Matthew, take over.
Yeah. No, this was good. People are starting. Sorry, the moment you call on me, my throat's fucking up, so that's great timing. But yeah, people are starting to join, so I'm going to start asking you the general questions. We also have a lot of people that listen in afterwards. It's quite amazing. It hits like 200 people.
Oh, that's
Uh,
great.
yeah, so that's why when like 10 people show up, it doesn't really bother us.
No, it's fine with
Uh,
me. I mean, I know how this type of stuff works too, and again, it's a hyper local thing too. So all the people in Toronto are going to be, as you guys promote it and everything, you'll be seeing more people after, of course.
Yeah, so let's just start like the basics, the introduction. So like you're new to the whole Web3. You've got your feet wet on Monday. So why don't you just tell us about yourself and Pawmates? Just give us a brief like elevator pitch.
Sure. Yeah. So Pawmates essentially is currently the social media for pets. We're all across North America. We have about 75,000 downloads so far. Actually, I misspoke because we've also expanded beyond North America too, unintentionally. We have some European audience as well, some South American audience, which we've thankfully gotten with no marketing or anything. It's just word of mouth, I guess, from users who happen to run into it and liked it, and so they're telling their friends. Initially, we started off as just a Tinder for dogs kind of thing. And it came from my dog got older. He was about 10 years old, and he slowed down a lot. And I thought of trying to find a playmate for him that would keep him going and was more his speed, an older dog. And I Googled it myself at the time in like 2018, 19, and I couldn't find anything. Didn't see anything about it, nothing online. And I thought, well, I could do this myself. And I'm a non-technical founder too, so I didn't know how to code, didn't know how to do anything. I knew almost nothing about the industry. But I just learned as I went slowly. And we didn't really even have an MVP for about a year and a half. And even that, we didn't get our first chunk of users for another year after that. And the year after, late 2021, is when we finally got our first break. BlogTO agreed to write a story about us. I think it was September or October of 2021. And we were lucky enough that we got that. And then as soon as that story went out, I started getting calls from news and media, Narcity, CTV, all these other places. And yeah, it's just been a ride up since then. And we're working on a funding round right now. And we're working with some big partnerships with some Canadian and US pet companies. So it's just been a great ride. And I have here Sven, who is my head of design. So he can speak to a lot of, some of the personal things that we've been dealing with as we've been going and expanding the platform.
So I had a follow-up question, but you brought up something, so I'm going to briefly skip that and go to the next one. You mentioned the funding round. So you brought up some ridiculous numbers, like 70,000 downloads, you said. You
Mhm.
have, your focus was on North America. You have people in South America, Europe, and when we talked, I was under at Bitcoin Bay. I was under the impression that you had not secured any funding yet. Is that correct?
No, so interestingly enough, and it's a very unusual situation, my senior backend developer has offered to put up his own money, about
Wow.
40K of his own money, which is really unusual. But that's a good thing for us because he's peered behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, so to speak, and he's happy with what he's seen. He knows all the back end. He knows, top to bottom, what everything looks like. And he's impressed enough with it that he said, look, I want a bigger piece of this. I am willing to put up my own money. Because typically, developers, especially a senior developer like him, they say, look, this is what I'm worth, take it or leave it, or I'll find someone else. But for him to actually be willing to put up a good chunk of his own money because he wants a bigger piece of it and doesn't want to miss out on it, that's a pretty good signal that we're on the right track.
I mean, that's awesome to hear, and it's great that you have somebody behind the back. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
$40,000, that's a lot of money on a personal level, of course. If you were
Yeah,
to ask me to invest like half that, that would be a huge commitment for me personally.
yeah, of course,
But
for anybody.
it's still for like an organization not a lot of money,
No,
like for you to operate on. And so like the fact that you got those numbers without VC funding, like how did you accomplish that? Like I know you mentioned like you got some breaks with like the publicity and stuff, but I feel like that alone wouldn't accomplish that. So that's really impressive.
yeah, no. So first things first is our costs are incredibly low. So as we've been building it up, one of the main things was scalability. So really, it's just data costs. What it costs, and we're just finishing a huge database migration from Firebase, which we've now outgrown, to Amazon Web Services. So basically, we keep our costs to an absolute minimum. So essentially for this seed funding round, I've determined that $100,000 is the maximum amount we really need to get to the next step, which is having 100,000 users. So right now we're at about 32,000 out of the 75,000 downloads. We have 32,000-ish regular profiles on our platform. So essentially, I've done some research and some digging, and 100,000 users is sort of the next plateau to reach. And with this funding round, we'll hit that plateau. We'll get a lot more, and also we have a lot of platform updates we're working on too. A lot of great stuff that we want to bring to the platform. So that's all part of our next 4 months, let's say.
That's still not a lot of money, 100K to operate that. So it's incredible that you can do all this with such a limited budget.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the main things, was making sure that we could scale it. And initially, I realized that to actually scale it to, a considerable, what you would need to do for it to be really valuable to the community, I realized that we're going to have to trim everything and keep everything to an absolute minimum to actually be able to do it. Otherwise, we're just going to need money and more money and more money. And then to get that, you have to give up a huge chunk of equity early on.
So
And
sorry, keep going.
no, that's pretty much it. You'd have to give up a huge chunk of equity, and then you just need more money anyway. So I didn't want to become one of those companies that's just keeps needing more runway, more funding. I wanted to make sure that we could be smart with it.
No, that's really great. Like I always feel like a lot of startups they fail because they run out of runway.
Yeah.
And even in our field, just some background. In about 2001, 2002, this is when FTX was at its prime, and
Oh, yeah.
you had hundreds of thousands of dollars being raised in seed rounds within months. You had millions being thrown around, and it always puzzled me that these projects would run out of runway. And I'm like, you had like
Yeah.
$2 million. Like, what did you do with that money?
I know.
Uh,
I went to a conference in New York. When was it? I think it's September. And I was talking to some of the people there, because this is all related to social media. It's young social media companies or dating companies, but some of them are doing so incredibly. There was one that was a Norwegian or Swedish. It was just two girls, and they were making a platform for women to make friends, to go on, free of issues, and go and make friends. And they just raised a $7 million round. And they're at about 500,000 users now. And I was talking to them. I said, firstly, how did you raise that? And secondly, why did you need that much? And what are you going to do with it? Because again, I was just thinking of where that would essentially, if you raise more, you can do the same things just at a bigger scale. But I feel like, and I've heard a lot of people over raise. So again, it's just a matter of trying to avoid all the problems that I see other people running into, and trying to avoid that ourselves.
So I guess this is a question that I just thought of now based on what you're telling me. So I hope you don't mind. But
Yeah, of
like,
course.
what advice can you give to other startups? You keep saying like to trim the fat. Like, what is some of this fat that you think needs to be trimmed that other startups just don't bother with?
Oh, that's a good question. We're such just the way we've done things is so unusual. So I'm not actually entirely sure what it is in a lot of other startups. I think one of the first things would maybe be the amount of people they have, because, Pawmates was a team of 2 until this year, when it became a team of 3 and then a team of 4. So we were running on a team of 2 for the first 3 years. And besides that too, as the founder, I guess I just tried to pick up as much as I could. So in terms of design, before I brought Sven on, for the basic designs, I realized I was paying someone to do things, and I realized I could pick up and learn Figma myself in a month. So I went and I did a bunch of tutorials and looked on YouTube and really, really tried to learn Figma and other design systems so that I could save that cost myself. And then I did for a while, for quite some time, until I realized I do need a design person. But then Sven and I can work on it together. So I guess another part of that is I'm obsessive. I'm incredibly obsessive about my own product. So I sit and obsess about, where this button should go, and what I should be doing with, it's just, I guess, being as involved as you can in your own project, and just being honest with what you really need and what you don't in terms of cost. Like, if you really break it down to yourself, if you put it on an Excel spreadsheet and say, okay, this is how much this is costing me, what can I really trim down, what's really important, and what can I live without to save us that money.
Yeah, you bring up the tech thing and how you learned yourself, and I think that's really important. Like, I worked in biz dev in the crypto space, but I've forced myself to learn Solidity.
Okay.
Just, well, I mean, I'm not great at it, but I kind of know I can do a basic smart contracts, and I know, sort of what is and what isn't possible. And that's important because, just a little anecdote, somebody I worked with once promised these people this very big promise. And he thought it was like 3 lines of code. And I was like, oh, it's not 3 lines of code. Like,
Yeah.
it was going to probably take the development team like a week to do it full time. And it was this whole argument, and from then I learned, like, I got to learn more of this because I can't make a stupid promise like that.
Yeah.
And so that's what comes to mind. Like, you learn the tech, you need to know you can work with Sven because you need to know when you ask Sven to do something, you need to know if it's possible or not, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, that's another thing I was going to do, was I was going to learn to code, because I was thinking to myself, we do have 2 team members who are working on the tech. That's our biggest cost by a long shot. So, at the beginning of this year, I was thinking to myself, I mean, even before that, I was trying to learn as much as I could so I could hop in and do a lot of things myself. I actually learned that coding is incredibly difficult, and I was advised by a lot of mentors and people to just leave that alone. They said, look, you're the operations person, you're the CEO, you have to manage the higher level stuff, and you need a person for that. But that's how far I was willing to go, and still am. If it comes down to it, whatever it takes for me to do for the success of the business, no matter how much work that is, no matter how many hours that costs for me to do, if I really see the cost benefit of it, and I think to myself, okay, well, this makes sense for me to do, I'll do it.
That's really cool, and I really admire that about you.
Thank you. We were even discussing at Casa, we were talking about all the crazy marketing schemes. I mean, not schemes, out there marketing ideas that we could get into. And I was joking with them that I would dress up in a dog suit and go harass people on the streets of Toronto if that's what it took to, get a viral video, and and for it to, I would run down the street naked if I needed to get this where it needed to go. So that's, that's part of doing it.
Well, of course. I mean, just to give you an example, if you want to run like a McDonald's or a Tim Hortons franchise, you actually have to know how to do every single job.
Right.
And that's just because your dishwasher calls in sick. Guess who's washing dishes, right?
Absolutely.
So a lot of people need to get this whole get over that this is beneath me stuff. Nothing should ever be beneath you.
Oh, 100%. No, 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 no. Like, especially if it is your business. I mean, especially early on in the early days, you're always going to be the bottleneck of your business. So you have to get ready to do whatever you need to do until you have a big enough team that you can properly hand things off to people. But in the beginning, it's all you. Like, I answer all of our messages from users whenever there's a problem, or, if we release a new version, I test all of it myself completely. I sit and I test for hours and hours myself before anything, so that when it comes time to release the version, no user is like, we are minimal on bugs, everything like that. Like, I want to see every bug instead of the user seeing it, and I want to see every problem before it ever gets to the user. And if someone messages the support email, I see it first.
That's incredible, and I feel like we've all used tech, and we've all been like, really, how could they have missed this, you know? And I feel like you got the CEO just completely oblivious that there's this major bug on his platform.
Oh, 100%. I see that all the time, even with other people I want to work with too. I see, I speak directly to the people, and then I get to their platform and I see a ton of issues with it. And that's so common, but that's what I wanted to avoid. And interestingly enough, I have an anecdote about, so there was an app that should have taken this entire space over before me, but they made a few crucial mistakes. So they were called Dig Dating, and they had a great platform, but they released it too early before all the bugs were fixed. And they wanted to charge users, I think $25 a month for a subscription, which already is high. But then whenever you charge a subscription price, then the bar gets even higher. People really want the best, and you have to have the best. So they got absolutely destroyed by their reviews. And then they flipped over into cats. So same platform, Meet Up for Cats. And they actually went on Shark Tank, and they got an investment from Kevin O'Leary. And I checked up on them, and they made the same mistake again. So,
Wow.
they charged people too much, and it was an incomplete product that had too many bugs, especially to be charging people that much. And so, again, my thing is just learning from other people's mistakes if you can. So I saw what they did, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to hold off on revenue generation. And that's a really risky thing too. So I didn't really pursue a lot of revenue generation until really the end of it, like until now, which is what we're doing now, is more revenue generation through advertising, maybe a premium. But one thing a lot of people do is shrink the free version to push people to premium, and I don't want to do that. So I'm keeping our free version as is. I'm not trimming it down, but for the extra, bells and whistles that some people are happy to pay for, I'm thinking, $3.99 a month for tons of extra things. And for the people that want it, that's great. For the people that don't, that's fine. 5% of users could convert to that, and that's perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, 25 bucks. That's a
It's
lot of
insane.
money.
Yeah.
That's like $3. That's something you could just impulse. But 25 bucks, the moment you think about that, you're making them think about that, you've lost them. I wonder if that investment by Kevin O'Leary went through, because I know a lot of them actually fall through the cracks after the show. So
Yeah,
maybe
of
that's what
course.
happened. Because I can't imagine Kevin O'Leary just being like, just do the exact same thing.
Yeah, there's no way. And again, I mean, that you could see what happened to them. And I thought that it was a good idea, good platform, and the dog section, what they did originally was before me. So they should have been able to grab hold of most of the market and protect against it and everything like that, but they didn't, because they made those crucial errors.
Yeah, and so we kind of, yeah, you said some interesting things, and I asked you a question based on those things, that then on another question based on those things. So I do want to talk more about your app, because I want you to talk about it. I want you to showcase it. That's why you're here, right? Get everybody on there. Um, so like, I did play around with it for a bit. Molly, my 13-year-old Bichon poodle, now
Oh,
has her own profile.
oh, that's
And
great.
you mentioned the whole, like, your dog was getting old, and I can kind of relate to that, because like, she has her own friends, and I had a barbecue a couple months ago, and someone brought their 2-year-old French bulldog,
Right.
and I'm not gonna lie, this dog is kind of a dick. He's just like, every time a dog goes up to him, you're like, I'm gonna fuck that you up. I'm gonna beat the living shit out of you.
Right, yeah.
He'll go up to these like 200-pound dogs, and I'm just like, buddy, I don't even think you're enough calories for a full meal for them. And
Yeah.
he'll still be like, ah. And Molly just sort of like looked at this dog, just like growling and barking and doing all this stuff. and was just like, I'm too old for this shit, and just walked away. And
Exactly.
so like, yeah, she does kind of need people her own age because she really just doesn't have time for these 2-year-old puppies that just like even if they're nice. I mean, I'm sure if they're nice, she'll be like, "Hey, how's it going?" But like the aggressiveness, she'll just be like, "I'm just it's not worth my time."
Yeah.
So I feel that's kind of cool, but I also feel like, I created my own personal profile with Molly's, right?
Yes.
And so like, is this also an app to help meet people?
Yeah, so essentially, we've seen a lot of different uses. So when I talk to users, when I see people active on the platform, it seems to be for a number of different reasons. So what I wanted to do in building the platform was not alienate other people, because early on I had a lot of people pushing the dating thing. They said, "Look, focus hardcore on dating, forget about everything else," or vice versa, leave dating alone. But a lot of people want different things. So some people will come on just because they want a friend for their dog or cat now, although that's a little bit less because we've added cats to the platform. Some people just want friends that are more their speed, or they want someone close to them that they know. Other people want to make friends themselves. They've just moved to an area, they don't know anybody, and it's just another way of meeting people around a shared love of animals. Some people are looking for breeding opportunities, but that's a whole legal thing that we're trying to navigate now. Is to what level do we allow that kind of activity on the platform? Uh, and some people really don't want to meet. They just want to go to our newsfeed and post cute pictures of their dog or cat. And that's the extent of what they want out of the platform. Or on our map as well, they're looking for a groomer in the area. And they want to see the ratings of the groomers and what other members of Pawmates have said about them, if anyone else has visited them. It's sort of that's kind of where we were going with this, was an overarching platform that different people can use for different things, and they don't feel alienated because they may not be the primary use case, but they still feel comfortable to use the platform.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and because like I said, I've dabbled it, but I just thought it was interesting that I also created my own profile along with Molly's, and
Yes.
some of them are how accurate is uh the distance? Because like some of them are like, oh, they're like less than 100 meters away from them,
Yes.
and
So we have a lot of people in Toronto. So if you are in Toronto, again, and we have pockets of, you know, chunks of users, which typically are in the big cities. So in Toronto, you will see a lot of people surprisingly close to you. Even when I go on, I see people in my building, and I didn't realize that they were on it. Um, but again, depending on where you are, if you go out of the city, then yeah, it's and you can set how far you want to see people. So if you go into the filter, of course, you can say, I only want to see people within a kilometer of where I am. But yeah, when you do go in very, very busy places, you'll get tons of people. But then if you go out to, Barrie, you'll maybe only see 12 people around you. So it really depends on the area.
yeah, I just wanted to ask that just because I thought it was crazy. That I was like, is my next door neighbor on this app?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, surprisingly, again, I'm thrilled with the response we got in Toronto, and especially across. I mean, now in the States, we're getting a lot of activity too. We have a lot of people in California, Florida, New York, Texas. It's really taking off across the states, and that's interesting because we are not doing any personal advertising in the space. That's really mostly now coming from the media. So the initial media that I did in Canada in 2021 brought us a huge chunk of Canadian users, and now, this residual media stuff that's happening in the States is pulling on tons of US users for us. So even though we're Canadian, we're based in Canada, we don't have any um, team members in the States. We now have 3 times the amount of US people on our app than we do Canadians.
I think that's kind of the cool thing, like about the the net and that's what I liked about crypto at the beginning. So you could have people from different parts of the world easily access you, and you can
Hmm.
have employees from different parts of the world. Like before COVID, because I started networking hard like just before COVID hit, and a
Right.
lot of people were working remotely like in crypto,
Yeah,
just because they wanted to have access to the best people in the world, regardless of where they were. So
absolutely. Yeah.
their workforce, like when everyone started this work from home thing, it was all literally zero adjustment for this industry. And
Hmm.
I think it's cool that you're able to reach out despite being a Canadian, despite doing very little marketing in the US, if any, and you still have this large US base, and that's awesome. And I hope you I go in and out of Latin America, and I feel like they love it there, and so I hope you can. I hope that grows organically too.
Yeah, and again, funny enough, we do have, despite doing nothing in Latin America, we do have, geez, how many profiles? I think we have maybe 2,500 users in Latin America, maybe at this point. And again, we did nothing for it, so to have that many people is great.
Yeah, and you can have Sven do the translation once it's up once it grows.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect, right?
That is on the agenda, actually.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, it
nice.
really is. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you got Samir raising his hand. What's up, Samir?
Hey, just wanted to ask a couple questions. By
Yeah,
the way,
yeah.
amazing conversation. I really like to hear like the whole story and all that. Sorry, but maybe I'm like repeating a question, but like guys, like what's your favorite feature about the app? Like what's like the most exciting thing that you're like, yo, like this, we're very excited about this feature. If it's
Oh,
already like published or maybe you're about to publish it.
for us,
Yeah.
geez, I would say right now what we're working on is the lost pets, which we've been working on for a while, but we've sort of perfected this idea of when you go online and you go on Facebook, because apparently even in Toronto, about 10 or so pets get lost per day, which is crazy. But I'm part of a number of Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, and things like that. So I see it all. Um, and what you usually see is a virtual poster. It has their picture, it has their name, contact, and a little info about them. But we were thinking that we could actually use our map. So similar to Google Maps or Apple Maps, you could see the last known location as a pin or as a radius. And then if another person sees or spots the lost pet, then they can update it, and then it'll show last seen at, and it'll show another radius. So you can actually get a closer idea of where, and a visual too. So we think that would really help in terms of lost pets being found and people keeping it. And again, our own users could help keep an eye out and things like that. So that's something I'm personally really excited about that we're going to be adding. And Sven, I'm sure has other things he could add to about what he personally, as the head of design, is excited about what, and what he's interested in.
Yeah, right now I'm looking forward to actually working with the kind of parallel what Colin said, the adoptables.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of, we're all not only out opening ourselves to, already assisting pet owners, but people who maybe want to become pet owners. And, we're working with I think we're talking about working with the impounds, Colin? No?
Yeah.
For the REST API?
Yeah, with the Humane Society and the SPCA, as well as all the local,
Very
places
cool.
that come, so that people can come on and they can, it'll link just directly to their site, and it just gets more traffic to them for dogs to be adopted and cats to be adopted, which I think is great.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
that's great for the community and also great for people who want to adopt, ethically, like, sorry, um, in an ethical way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that, again, that's a huge thing, and even on our platform, we have people coming on and offering puppies to buy and things like that, and we're trying to, I'm talking to a lot of the humane societies legal teams and things like that to see what we should do, like our responsibility to the community, how we can regulate that on our platform and make sure that we're supporting ethical breeding, adoptions, everything like that. So that's one of the things that we are trying to moderate. That's one of the challenges we have actually. But yeah. Oh, Samir, did you have another question?
Yep, sure. By the way, thanks so much for answering. That was a great answer. Great
Oh, thank
feedback, by
you.
the way.
Yeah, of course.
Um, with the rise of artificial intelligence and so many capabilities now available for their different apps and developers, have you guys considered implementing any AI tools or any sort of features into your app?
Oh, 100%. I think again, a lot of people are saying AI. Either you um, join or you get left behind. But for us, it was more a matter of not, as you said, just with Web3, not just throwing it on for the sake of throwing it on, but being really mindful of where we're going to implement it and why. What's the end goal? Like we're not just throwing AI on just because we can, as a chatbot or something like that, just to say we have AI to try to get investors interested or something. Just we want it to actually be useful to the platform, and either through that can help us with content moderation, or that can help us with improving the user experience. So when we talk to users and we say, okay, this is something we're going to be doing with our focus groups, when we start looking into actually AI, we'll say, okay, how can we support your experience and better it with AI? What are the top things that you think we could improve with AI in your experience? And we can give them examples and help them along, for the average person that doesn't know, the intricacies. But yeah, we didn't just want to half-ass it and throw it on just because. We wanted it to be purposeful.
Fantastic. And my last question, and I'm sorry if this has already been kind of discussed, but like, what are your main like monetization drivers or revenue drivers for the app, whether
Yeah,
existing or in the future?
right. So right now, our only monetization is advertising. So we have a couple of big time pet advertisers that we have on, and I'm in conversation with a few others, like Ren's Pets I just spoke to yesterday or the day before. Um, and then after that, we'll be considering, again, the premium for a very small amount and just for extra things. So no shrinking, the free version. And then we are also going to be looking into an e-commerce side. So what we can do is have a shops tab, and we can list a ton of products and give people discounts on them. And we can go to, let's say, PetSmart and say, look, we'll list all of your products and we just want 5-10% of a sale. Every time someone buys from our platform and links directly to us, it goes straight to you. We'll get 10% of that sale, something like that. So we have three main divisions that we're considering, but there are a surprising number of other ones that we could explore. Not limited to a coin in the Web3 section, local business advertising, events. I mean, and that's one thing I love about this space is there's so much, because people, myself included, I'm a young person with a fiance, and we have a dog and a cat, and we treat them like they're our kids at this point because we don't have kids yet. So, we're willing to spend money on them. We're willing to do anything we can to improve their lives. So I think Pawmates really can just join in on that. I'm really looking at the top things pet owners need online. What are the key 5 or 6 things, let's say, that they are currently highly underserved in, and that we can come in and we can give to them? And I want it to be cheap. I want it to be easy. I really, it's to me, it's user first, experience first, and then you can monetize after. I mean, if you have an audience, you have a platform, you can always figure out how to monetize it. You can always push that. But early on, particularly because of when I told you guys the failures with the one that went on Shark Tank, I really did push monetization to the back. And I said, platform first, audience first, then we monetize. And even with monetization, we'll keep it very minimal, very, you know, small monetization, at least for the time being.
I actually have a couple, like one more question. Matthew, do you mind if I ask a couple
No,
more?
no, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Um, yeah, Colin. So you mentioned the failure of Shark Tank and or Was it not Shark Tank? The Canadian one,
Dragon's
right?
Den. That's the
Actually,
OG.
I was on Dragons Den a couple of weeks ago, or a
Oh
couple of
wow.
months ago. I
So okay,
was,
so
yeah, go on.
I wanted to talk about the failure part. You said, Shark Tank failed or something like that. Does that mean that, you kind of like didn't get into Shark Tank or something like that?
Oh no, I was saying the dig dating that should have been the success. I learned from their failure.
Oh, I see.
So
But that was not your ad, right? That was
that's
someone else.
why I pushed monetization to the back, because they went monetization first, and it so completely destroyed them twice that I thought,
Right.
okay, you don't monetize that early. Although there are some people, particularly in the mobile space, that do think that monetization is important as early as possible. But I am not necessarily. I mean, it's all based on the individual use case. So for some companies, it makes sense for them to monetize first, depending on what they're offering, how badly they need it, etc. But for us, I took a look at our numbers. I said, okay, we don't need to do it right away, so we're not going to. We can do that once we have somewhat of an audience, somewhat of a platform. Like, let's just focus on the product first, and then we'll get to it.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah,
You guys been doing this for quite some time, for several years now, and I mean, there got to be some adversity, right? Like it's such a grind to like keep at it, and so like for you as a founder of this company, how do you like? Because it's lonely to be a founder, an entrepreneur is a very daunting and lonely task for a lot of people, but
of
it
course.
pays off at the end, and it's like for special type of people. I guess like my first question is like, at what point did you decide that you want to do your first thing? Like, at what point did you decide that you want to do your own thing, except like versus like working 9 to 5? And then what keeps you going? You know what I mean? Like, what moves you to that? Because you guys are not raising any funds, so I'm guessing like it's still kind of like in the inception stage in terms of like scaling up like worldwide and money wise and stuff. So like, how are you handling all of that? And like, but first of all, how did you understand that you want to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, well, I don't know. I always seem to, even before this, I had done a number of other businesses and, with varying success, but it always seemed to be something I really wanted to do. I always wanted something for myself. There's a certain amount of pride in owning something yourself and owning your own business. And I think it's also the promise that if you work really, really hard for, 5 to 10 years, then you're setting yourself up for a much easier future. Then you don't have to work as hard, let's say in your 40s, 50s, what have you, depending on how early you start. And I guess for this, in terms of what keeps me going personally, I'm sure Sven has his own, things that he could discuss. But for me, it's the community. It's the pride of having something for yourself, and you can just turn back and see how far you've come, because there are a lot of times when I get down about it and I think, oh, geez, we're not moving fast enough. We're not pushing hard enough, our social media and everything. But then you turn and look back at where you were 1 year ago and you think, well, you know what? Actually, we have come pretty far since last year. We have 10,000 more users than the previous year and 20,000 more social media followers, and people seem to really like it. And we're not getting as many emails about problems. So obviously everything's working well. You can just sort of turn back around and again, right now, so we are raising funding right now. For a seed or pre-seed, we're only 40% of the way done the round. But it is daunting and it's a lot of work. And I personally work on this myself from about noon to 2 in the morning every day, Saturdays and Sundays included. And I work, 10 to 14 days in a row. And then I take a day or two off and then I do it again. And that's, it's kind of coming back to like what it takes. Like for me, I see the vision. I see that this could be something quite incredible. And, it's the idea of not regretting it later, when I turn 50 and I think, oh, damn, I had this thing. And if only I worked, if only I gave it a really honest shot. Like, again, I wanted to give it as honest and as complete of a shot, put everything I possibly can into it so that later on, if knock wood, it didn't work, I could say, you know what, I have no regrets about it because I truly did everything I could. And and that's all you can really do.
I think it's important to note that many of the big, social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, like WhatsApp, they had like zero revenue for most of their years, right?
Oh yeah,
And people were attracted, like, okay, we don't know how they're making money, but 1 billion people use their platform. There's got to be some way to do that, right? And
exactly. Yeah.
I feel like you're going about it the right way, especially since like I said, you're following in these footsteps, and especially with the way you're running things on a tight ship. That's the way to go it with it, because you don't have to worry about revenue right away. I think that's the key issue here, the key
Yeah.
point to come across.
Well, even these small, you don't even have to go as big as Tinder or any of them. I mean, you can look at dating apps. Let's say there's Highly, Bumble. What are some of the other ones? I mean, there are so many smaller players in the industry that get it right, or even because everyone is different. Every platform's very individual. The people on it are different, but yeah, to me, for our specific use case and how we set up the company, low cost and everything, I basically said, okay, we're not going to be generating any revenue for the first 2 years, and that's okay. But I did pick up, I wanted to test it. So I picked up an advertiser, a big one. It's Trupanion Pet Insurance. So they're like a $2 billion pet insurance company in Canada and the States. And I was lucky enough to pick them up this early. But again, that just speaks to persistent. Like I got on the phone and I called and I emailed until I got to the right person, and I talked to them and convinced them that this was a good thing. And they said, okay, well, we'll try it out. And I've been working with them now for a year plus, and they've been pretty happy so far. So, just the idea of testing, even if you're not going to do something, the idea that you're testing what it will be like. So you could, yes, sorry, Samir. Samir, you had a question?
Yes, sorry to interrupt. Matthew, did you see the
No,
questions from
no
the
problem.
audience?
Sorry.
We have questions from the audience. Did you see that?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, it's not as obvious with your. So like, if you want, I could just invite you guys to speak if you prefer.
Sure, that's fine with me.
So some
Okay,
people asked the
let me just
questions.
ask the
Thank you.
question. No, we
Okay.
have they so Lisan is asking, are you thinking of Pawmates as a marketplace? Do you guys have a vision of what kinds of services, commodities that could be sold on the platform?
Right. Yeah. So that is something we have considered. Again, there's a whole buying and selling subset of people that are on Facebook and buy and sell things related to pets. So there's that too. Basically, the big thing is um, the idea is we don't want to over engineer it. So there are so many things that we want to and can add to the platform, but we're trying to zero in on what the most important things are for pet owners, bar everything else. So we're trying to get, focus groups together and going around to all of our users and saying, okay, what is it you guys want the most out of all the possibilities that we could offer, so that we don't offer, 20 things. We just offer, let's say, 6 or 7 really, really important things that they cannot find other places very easily. So yeah, no, commodities, that's all on the table for sure, and we have discussed that. So we're not 100% sure what that would look like now besides the shop tab.
Yeah.
But we are thinking about that. That is definitely on the table.
Yeah, one of the things that I responded was that we already do have like the map feature, which has a listing of a lot of pet related businesses
Yes.
or pet services. And that's obviously we, further design and further develop that can actually help connect businesses and their services and products directly towards possible customers on the platform. Um, that's something that's kind of on the table right now, and I mean we're really looking forward towards building something like that.
Mm-hmm. So again, it just depends on how it turns out, what our users say, if they really, really would like a marketplace, or if a lot of our users say, well, you know what, we use Facebook and that's fine, we don't need another
Yeah.
marketplace. Then we know that that may be not the right play. Or if we do go into that, then we need something different about it. We need something special that would make them want to use it. If we do go, if that is the case.
Taking an example from like Google doesn't directly sell you the things, but it connects the
Yeah.
customers towards it.
We're talking
That's
affiliate
always
marketing.
something.
Like the referral links and like that. That's a huge potential. I feel like. I just want to also add that Philip, I posted his feed on the banner. He has a connection to Seuss Pets. I'm not sure what Seuss Pets are, but
I think I've heard of them.
yeah, Phil, if you can
SOOS.
help our people here, that would be great. Just to make this connection.
Yeah, that would
Oh,
be
it's
great. Thank you.
shampoos. Yeah.
Oh,
I
I thought that was the pet supply store on I think it's North Yorkish,
So it's funny. I've actually looked
because
up
they
very
also have a
quickly.
brand.
Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
On ChatGPT, like the value of the industry, pet care industry. So by 2030, it's projected to get in market value is projected to get to $368 billion,
Yep.
reflecting compound annual growth rate of 6.45%. And
I have that
so,
on my investor. I have exactly those stats on my
okay,
investor pitch deck. Yeah.
yeah. So my point is that all those businesses, all those giant corporations, they will need to sell, they need to advertise, and they need to find advertisement platforms. And so if you can, that's why user base is so important. If you can get that, amazingly well targeted pet care, pet owner user
Exactly.
base in your app, it's just such a golden goose if you can like just scale. And so my follow-up question is, can people invest in your business? Like, is it open to like general public, or what are the way you're currently conducting your funding, your seed round?
Right. So we're currently just conducting the 100K seed round. We have 40 now from my developer. And I'm actually speaking to someone next Wednesday about doing the rest of the round. He's a Norwegian investor who is actually involved in the crypto space as well. But yeah, no, I mean, we are still seeking investment. We're looking at investors. We're speaking to investors. The only thing is it's not my particular background. So I don't have any background in investing. I don't know any people in the space really, besides people I've met recently. So our only problem with that, and what's taken us so long, is that we don't really have the um, network to call on in that sector. So we're kind of just jumping in from the ground floor with what we have and what we can do. And it's been going pretty well so far. It's just the investment round has taken some time because of that, because I don't know any people personally, or, so it takes a little longer to get those meetings and to get in front of people. But we've still managed it, as we have, very slowly. But slow is better than nothing, so that's okay with me. I'm as long as we're making forward progress, I am completely fine with that.
So we're sort of running low on time, so I just wanted to ask this a couple questions quickly.
Yeah.
One is like, so we are a DAO, which is we're using blockchain technology. We have NFT memberships, but we consider ourselves a tech community, and our mission statement is to stop the tech brain drain here in Toronto. So
Hmm.
as someone who is part of that tech community, like what do you like what do you think the government or maybe any NGOs, institutions can do to help people like yourself?
Oh, that's great. That's a great question. I think maybe grants and funding, making it more accessible to people who maybe don't have those networks like us. Um, I think that, again, especially early on when the market is having trouble, people are less likely to invest in seed rounds, and also with founders who don't have a proven track record in multiple other exits. So typically, they look at founders who've already made exits before. They'll look at Series A, or, if they are doing seed fund, if they're willing to put in money early on, typically they want a big percentage. They want a chunk of equity for their risk. So I think for the government, I guess, would just to be more of a facilitator in funding and allowing people to find funding, grants, things like that, just making it as easy as possible for people to share in that. Because I feel like what happens is it just goes to the top people again, people who have had successful exits, they already have funding, they can self-fund as well. And then they're the ones that get more funding because they have the track record. So I think it's sort of everything filters up to the top and then it trickles down, not literally trickles down, but, figuratively, they'll people fight for the top 10-20% of companies and then go for the rest after.
I feel like that's the equivalent of having American Idol have a bunch of like famous people participate.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that versus the no name. We're basically a no name. We just happen to get lucky and get this far, which is great. And yeah, no, but that's pretty much the gist of it. We're still moving along, so I think facilitating it would make it easier for people like us.
Yeah, that's good to know, and so hopefully we can reach out to some people that have some influence on that can change that. That's what we're doing, or that's what we want to do here at Toronto DAO.
That's
And
great.
finally, just what if anybody wants to approach you for any like partnership opportunities, they themselves can connect you to a grant or an investor. How can they reach and get in touch with you?
Oh, well, they could reach me at my personal email, cjarvisgaum@gmail.com, or they can email us at info@Pawmates app, or follow us and message. I mean, I'm very active on all of our, most of our platforms and things, and I read a lot of the messages, and anything personal to our emails, I read. And again, even with our partners, I try to do it all. I try to be the personal contact too. So even with the businesses we're bringing on, I'm the one talking to them. So if anyone needs to reach me, I'm here. Also, Sven is here as well. Yeah, no, we're happy to talk to anyone in terms of partnerships or even things that we can offer too. If there's any overlap in the pet community, we have some people that we know. So if anyone's interested in that as well, we're happy to help.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, we usually keep these an hour long, so we're at the 3 o'clock mark. This has been fantastic, and you're honestly, I think Samir, correct me if I'm wrong, our first like non-crypto guest to be on here, and
Absolutely.
which really helps. Sorry?
I think you're right.
Yeah, so that really helps push we're not crypto, we're tech. So it was great having you on. It was great having your insight on here. We do hope to see you at other Bitcoin Bay events just so we can chill and chat. Be
Absolutely.
always great to chat with you. Go check out everyone. Go check out Pawmates for your dog to meet other dog owners. It's a fun app.
Thanks.
I played around with it. It's great. Um, and yeah, we wish you all the best, and we're gonna keep an eye on you, and keep an eye on your growth. I don't think you're gonna be going anywhere. I mean, like, I don't think you're gonna be disappearing anytime
Right.
soon.
Yes, of course. No, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think it's good that you guys are expanding too in the different industries, because there are a lot of lessons and things that, are applicable across industry. At least I've found that, I've learned from so many different people in so many different industries. I think there's a lot that we can all share with each other.
Yes, definitely. I definitely agree with that. And, I look forward to hearing more from you. And for those who are listening in now or listening to the recording later, if you have a project and you want to be a guest on our show, we're always looking for more guests, and we'd always be happy to have you on here. So, feel free to reach out in the WhatsApp group to myself, to Samir, and we'd be happy to have you on our show. But yeah, this has been Matthew from Toronto DAO. Samir, thank you for co-hosting. Colin, thank you for being a guest, and we hope everyone has a good weekend, and we see you next time.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much, and thank you to
Thank
Sven
you.
as well too.
Right. Oh yes, thank you, Sven. Sorry about
Thank you,
that.
man.
No
Muchas
problem.
No worries.
muchas gracias.
Okay.
All
Muchas
right,
Ciao.
gracias.
thank you guys.
Bye bye.